Well, everybody, nobody was expecting us to do this interview, so this is going to be a surprise for everybody. And you guys were all asking for Hansel to come back on, and he graciously agreed to do so. And what we thought we would do is basically go through all of you guys' questions and just do a part two to the interview and go over some more details, possibly hear any changes that have happened. I think it's been what, like about a month, Hansel? Is that right?
I'd say I believe about like a month and a half since the
Month
first
and a half.
interview.
Okay, so maybe we'll talk about some changes if anything has happened or changed since then. But mostly today, we're going to be focusing on those questions that you guys had in the comments. And if anybody is coming on and you haven't seen the first interview, I will link that down below. And I highly recommend to watch that because it kind of sets up a baseline as to what we're talking about in his business today. But to just give you guys a recap, people were really intrigued with you, Hansel. I'm sure you saw all the comments. People were just really inspired by you, and I think the overarching theme was that you're so young and you are just killing it on eBay. You had, I think we mentioned, a 55,000 90-day sales total, which means you're more than likely going to hit six figures in your first year of reselling, which is awesome. I personally really loved your just kind of no nonsense approach to everything. It's kind of how we run our business here at Well Traveled. So I really appreciate that. And I think what a lot of the viewers liked about that no nonsense approach was it just really showed that really anybody can do this if you put your mind to it. A lot of the things that I saw in the comments had to do with focus, consistency, motivation, and discipline. And so we're going to dive into some of those topics with you guys' questions today, but make sure to stay till the end because we are going to deep dive into those. Did I get that all right, Hansel? Did that all sound right to you?
And that all sounded right to me, yes.
Okay. Oh, and I forgot to mention you started reselling less than a year ago, correct?
We're coming up on pretty close to a year. I started really listing, I'd say, around September time, but I started sourcing probably around the beginning of August. So we're about to approach a year in about like a month and a half or so.
That's insane. That is just so crazy. All right, well, let's get into it. I did have one question I was going to answer for myself that I added to my notes here, which was someone asked, why am I taking notes during the interview? Do I have something to gain from like interviewing you? And the answer to that is no, not really, except for just, knowledge, learning from Hansel, his business model, and just learning, making friends with somebody in the reseller community. But the reason that I take notes is because I have a very poor memory and I like to do my best not to interrupt whatever guest I have on my channel. And so during Hansel's responses, he might be saying some things and I just want to jot some notes down so that I can remember to ask him some more detailed questions later. So if you see me taking notes, I hope it's not too distracting to everybody, but that is why. So the first thing I wanted to address, I won't call it an elephant in the room, but I did see a couple of comments that were basically questioning your 90-day total that you gave and saying that the numbers didn't add up. And I want to do a just quick breakdown of those numbers. But first, let me ask you, Hansel, I know you sent me screenshots of your 90-day totals. The 55K was from, a little while ago. How are your sales doing now? Have they dipped? Have they waned a little bit? What's that look like for you?
So we are experiencing the summer slowdown just a little bit. So our sales have dipped maybe to about 16 to 18 per day rather than how it was at 20 to 24, as I stated in the last interview.
Okay. Yeah. And it's good to know that, just another clothing reseller, we all experience summer slowdown. I mean, there are things we can do to prevent the summer slowdown from happening. But if you do nothing differently, you're going to probably experience a summer slowdown if you are a used clothing reseller. So I think that's just good to note for everybody watching. So some people were saying the numbers didn't add up. So I'm going to pop up on the screen when I edit this video the breakdown of this, but just clearing this up in case you're questioning it, or maybe it was confusing, or you just really don't know how to break down numbers for your own business, this is the breakdown we did. So 55,000 90-day total gross. So that's not take home pay, that is sales gross. When we divide that by 3 to get a month's average, it's going to be about $18,333. Then you divide that by 4 to get a week, and that is going to give about $4,500 a week of gross sales that someone, Hansel, or anybody watching, if you wanted to achieve these numbers, that is the amount you would need to be making gross per week in order to gross about a 55K 90-day total. And then if you want to break that down further, you divide that by 7. That is going to give you making about $655 a day. And then we divided that by your average sale price. I think you said it was around $22. I could actually pull up notes here too, which means you would need to list 30 a day. And I think you said you were listing around, was it 35 a day, Hansel?
It's like about 35 to 40 a day in that ballpark.
Yeah, so that really makes sense to me. I mean, because, obviously the goal is that you want to be able, you want to be at that reseller nirvana where you're selling as much as you're listing per day. But realistically, for most people, especially when you're growing too, selling even 35 out of 35 or 40 is really good. So those are rough estimates. And again, just wanted to clear that up because I saw not only people questioning it, but also just some confusion. So there's the breakdown on the screen for that. And then, like Hansel said, those numbers do fluctuate. So if you're using those numbers for your own business to try to achieve the same goals, make sure you're applying your own numbers to that as well, as far as average sale price, cost of goods, and all of that goes. All right, I have a summarized question for you. So I summarized it into one, but it's basically that you are very young. Do you want to remind everybody how old you are?
I'm 20 years old currently, going on to 21 in September.
Yes, so you're a very young reseller. Um, and it seems this I'm quoting other people, paraphrasing here, but it seems like you're doing nothing but studying because you're also a full-time student and working with reselling. So just doing nothing but working basically. And the overall question was, do you feel like you're missing out on what other people your age are doing?
So when I'm asked this question, it rings a bell in me, and it's definitely a feeling I was familiar with. I felt this more when I was working at Target, just working a regular job. But ever since I started reselling, I feel like the free time I do have is a lot more quality, and it's on my own time. Then I've learned the value of time too, being more efficient with my day to be able to, save time and have that free time.
It's so interesting that you bring that up because a lot of resellers are you, and we may have mentioned this in the first interview, but it's a concept I hear a lot, which is a lot of resellers don't want to be hyper efficient. They don't want to like rein in and have a very strict schedule for themselves because they left their corporate job or whatever for a reason and they left it to have freedom. Reselling to a lot of people means time freedom. And so when they feel like they have to put themselves in a box or a strict structure, they feel like they don't have freedom. But what's interesting is, and I think the same way, by the way, so like I can really resonate with this, is you're saying that you're actually creating more time freedom when you are giving yourself those efficiencies because you're able to, I guess, separate the work from the playtime. And then when it's, you time, it's all focused on actually spending time by yourself and not working. Is that correct?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Yes.
And you are still making sure to get out there and do things, I'm sure. What do you do in your free time?
Oh, right now it's just hanging out a lot with friends, and then with my spare free time, I like watching a lot of sports. I've gone out to a few concerts from July. Like in the beginning of July, I'll be going on a family vacation with my family. We'll be going over to the
Awesome.
Philippines, which will be my first time going.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. So, for everybody listening, it's totally possible to work hard and play hard. And again, I think it's just a mind shift, a different way of looking at things. That yes, you might feel a little bit constricted in your time, but you're able to create more time freedom because you're going to be making more money. And the time that you are spending on working is so hyper focused that you're able to almost spend less time working because you're being hyper focused. Since you are getting clothing from the bins, which is the Goodwill outlet for anybody watching, do they call it the bins where you're at?
Yeah, they call it the bins.
Because I know we were talking about like the pallets and stuff, so I wasn't sure if they still called it the bins. So you are mostly getting clothing from that Goodwill outlet, and you try to post clothing the same day that you pick it up. Do you wash, steam, or iron the clothing? And why or why not?
So I would say it's about a 60 to 40 split. I would say 60% doesn't go laundered. I feel like most clothes that are donated that I pick up, they already feel pretty clean, so I feel like they're already ready to list. And then I make a pile and I'll go to the laundromat about maybe 1 to 2 times per week for items that are not clean to get them laundered and clean.
Okay. So you're going to a laundromat. Is that just because you have a bulk amount of stuff?
Yeah, pretty much just bulk amount of stuff, and then just my family wants me to not use the laundromat here at home and just go out and use the ones.
That makes sense. And I mean, with the amount of stuff you're listing too, that is probably a lot of wear on a washing machine. I can relate because we wash stuff here. And recently I started having somebody else do it, and we do wash a lot of stuff. So, okay. And I'm not sure if we'll get into this today, so I'm just going to ask the question now. But before we actually started recording, you mentioned that you were testing out a new Goodwill outlet. Why did you decide to test out a different location?
So the new location has actually been something I've been trying out for about maybe the past month or so. It's been a lot more efficient. I usually go to the one nearby my house to start off my morning, and then I'll make my way over there just because they let you get as many pallets as you want. And the one I go to nearby my home, you're limited to two. So if I want to source more than I already am, I have to make the extra trip to the further Goodwill outlet, which is out in Oakland.
Okay. Yeah, I know actually several people that go to your bins and they feel quite a few constraints with that only 2 pallet a day. So good to know you're trying some different options and totally agree with you about the clothing. That's a question I get on my channel also a lot. And my philosophy is like most people wash before they donate, and most people are also going to wash it before they wear it. So I just don't really see the point unless obviously there is a big stain or something that you want to put the work into. Do stains bother you? Do you try to avoid stuff that needs laundered, or are you in the mindset of I've just got to get as much as I can and I'm willing to put the work in to clean it?
So it really depends what the item is. If the item has a value of over like $30 clean, I'll probably take it and clean it up. But if it's an item that I feel like there's just not enough room for margin on it being worth it to clean, then I'll just leave it there.
Okay. I like hearing that you've got some rules in your head for yourself. We're going to talk about rules and stuff later, but I'm starting to get a sense that you do make some cutoffs and some rules for yourself. One big question I saw was everybody wanted to know what your eBay store was. So, are you sharing your eBay store? And if you are, what is that store name? And if you aren't, why are you choosing not to share your eBay store?
So probably near the end of this interview, I will be sharing a new Instagram I created that will be completely thrift related, and there will be a link to my eBay store in that Instagram
Okay.
account.
Okay, very cool. Well, we're going to have a lot of happy subscribers. So, everybody go follow Hansel and make sure you stick around towards the end of the interview so you can get that link. What brands do you sell that are consistent sellers, or maybe possibly just like categories or things that you generally look for?
Right now, I'm really liking the activewear stuff. I love it for the reasons that they're very compact, they're not very bulky, so they're great for storage. And then If you're getting them from the bins, they're lightweight, so you don't need to pay too much by the pound for active wear. And then, yeah,
Smart. I never thought about that, I guess, as far as like categories go. Like, I obviously know that, like, I know a lot of people like picking up like belts and ties and like little silky things towards the bottom because they are so lightweight, but I've never really thought about just a category as a whole being very lightweight. But you're right, like athletic wear, definitely a little more cost effective at the bins. A lot of people were very interested in your career in college. So if you're willing to share, and feel free to say that you aren't willing, but what studies are you pursuing in college?
right now I'm currently pursuing a business accounting degree, and I just graduated from my community college, so I'll be transferring to a state college for the next semester.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. What made you interested in business and accounting?
Ooh, I feel like for business in general, I always knew liked business, and then accounting was just more of a thing. I've always been kind of into numbers, so just putting my strength forward, I thought accounting was probably the best fit for me for a business major.
Okay. That totally makes sense. I can tell that you are about the numbers, and I could see you thriving in that. Also related to college, do you see yourself in a different career once you graduate, meaning not doing reselling? If so, what would that career be? Or do you plan on continuing to resell after college, or do you know?
Currently, at the moment, I see myself being a reseller for a very long time and having long-term growth in this business. So, no.
Okay. I think it's great too that you could really, I mean, you could pivot either way because what you're learning now does apply to reselling. And I think, the accounting portion is going to go a long way. I wish that I would have taken, some kind of accounting to, just help my own reselling business. That was it for the career questions. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So another question was about your efficiency. So you list a lot of items as far as a solo reseller goes. In most people's eyes, you mentioned that you're listing 35 to 40 a day. For most people who are doing this solo, that does sound like a lot. Um, are you doing this solo? Do you have any help at all?
So currently at the moment for last time you interviewed me, I was doing it completely solo. About a week after the interview, I hired a virtual assistant to help do with about half my listing. So I still do half myself, and then the rest of the half I'll picture it and I'll send it over to my virtual assistant who has worker access to my eBay account who gets those listings done for me.
Okay, awesome. Stepping up your reselling game. I love to see it. You said that you're doing half. So does that mean you're doing, let's say you're doing 40 listings a day. Are you doing 20 completely by yourself and then photographing 20 and then they're finishing those 20 listings, or is it 20 and 20?
So I'll do 20 on my own start to finish, and then I will photograph 20 and send it over to my virtual assistant, who then gets them drafted for me, and then I'll list them the next morning. But a draft is pretty much a listing.
Yeah. How's that working out for you so far?
It has definitely saved me a lot more time and helped me be more efficient, so I'm able to allocate that time saved into sourcing a lot more now too.
Okay. Yeah, I get a lot of questions about virtual assistants. I've never had a completely online virtual assistant. I've had virtual assistants, but they were people who I met in person and hired, and then they just basically worked remotely at their house. So it wasn't quite the same thing as just hiring a virtual assistant. Are you having any struggles with like training, or has the process been, fairly simple?
Oh, it's been fairly simple. The hire has been amazing. I He does his work and then I'll revise him and I'll tell him if there's improvements and I've seen a lot of improvements since he started and they're almost pretty much perfect by now.
Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. I know some people are kind of hit or miss with the virtual assistant, so it's glad to hear I'm glad to hear that it's working for you. And that you're able to do that coaching with them. Speaking of listing 35 to 40 items a day, can you just give us kind of like a step-by-step of how items get listed? And I mean, you can include, the virtual assistant steps too in getting that to them.
So I just do it all through my phone. I'll take the photograph and then usually I'll find the sales similar on eBay just the title structure a little bit to something a little better and then just price it based off that and get it listed. It'll take about 4 to 6 minutes. And then once I do my fair share of about 20, I'll just photograph the next 20 and then I'll put them in a Dropbox folder and send it over to the virtual assistant and let them know.
Okay. And after your items get photographed, is that the moment that they get put into your inventory system?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a very streamlined process, kind of like a one and done. Once you're done photographing, it gets put in an inventory system and you don't have to pull it out again to finish the listing. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And are you the type of the reseller who, I guess, answers customer questions? Like if a customer asked you a question and it wasn't apparent in the listing, are you going back into your inventory system to pull those items out later to answer those questions?
Ooh, sometimes I do miss the mark and I don't answer all those questions, but I try to answer as many questions as I can for my customer.
Okay. Yeah, I know there's like two strategies, I think, with the customer questions. Some people are just one and done, like once that item is in the bag, that's it. I'm not answering anything. And then on the flip side, there's people who answer every single question, even if it's redundant. And personally, for us, we do answer every single question, but I always take those as learning lessons. And I try to say, okay, if a customer, for instance, we were listing a lot of blazers and like every single day we were getting a question about sleeve length on a blazer. So we just now incorporate that into our listing. But I was interested how you do it just because you are so efficient and kind of like I said, a one and done process, it seems, if you would be pulling those back out. I am going to, as we're talking, I'll have been putting up those pictures on the screen of your kind of photo area and also your inventory system. And I think what's great about your system is it is just so simple and streamlined. And again, really anybody can do this. And I hope that the viewers watching can see that you don't need to have like a bunch of fancy stuff around you. Like you don't need a bunch of lighting. You don't need, all this stuff. Like just get the listings up and get it done. And if they're good items, they're going to sell. Do you have any plans to change your photo station, I'll call it, in the future? Or are you going to go with this for as long as you can see down the road?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm definitely thinking about a new upgrading the photo system. I'm thinking I'm hoping to get into a warehouse probably sometime by the end of this year, and then once there's more space for it, I'll build something kind of like the ones I see on YouTube. It's kind of hard to describe on here, but if you were to search it up, you could probably find them. They're all fairly similar.
Is it the inverted flat lay?
I believe so, and then there's kind of like a rug on it that helps the
Yeah.
items kind of stick. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an inverted flat lay system. I could definitely see that working for just the flow that you do things. Let's talk a little bit about your inventory system. I'll pop a picture up here on the screen, but can you just explain to us your inventory system?
Yeah, so my inventory system is all the bags, they're numbered from 1 to continuous, it's at 120. And then you kind of just put it in SKU, what number you put your item in. And then when an item sells, you could kind of see if the SKU says it sold and then it says one, you check bag one and you'll be able to find the item in there.
Yeah, I know I asked you for those pictures beforehand, and part of that was honestly, I wanted the viewers to be able to see kind of what we were talking about and how, again, anybody could get started. But I also myself wanted to know what your inventory system looked like. So I was surprised. I have never seen somebody use the trash bag method. So very interesting to see, and keeping that in mind also for anybody that's just getting started up and wants a quick, easy solution for that. A lot of people were very surprised that you are doing so well on eBay, even though you are not on social media. Like, you're not promoting your eBay store, you're not talking about reselling. I know you're going to start doing that. But leading up until now, how were you able to get traffic to your store and make sales without a following?
I would say great prices, great title structure, and great keywords is what helped a lot with that.
Are you surprised at that question?
A little bit, I am.
Yeah. Have you heard in the reseller community that, or maybe seen just comments on videos where it's like, well, you're only making those sales because you're on YouTube?
I actually haven't seen those comments. I always just thought eBay was like a marketplace where anyone could list anything and it'd be found just through the search bar.
That is true. I definitely think having a following, if you build up, obviously, I'm doing thrift hauls. So like somebody on my channel might see something that they're interested in and that might result in a sale. But I do agree with you that for the most part, it is all through search. In fact, I would say also that buyers are probably not going onto a specific eBay store and viewing items that are coming up. It's mostly all done through search. A lot of people were interested in where you were located, and I think you might have said in the last video that you are in California. And California, for a lot of resellers, this is what I hear in the reseller community, so I'm just relaying it. But it's kind of known for being very competitive, really high price, like really high cost of goods, and in general, not great for resellers. So, how are you able to make it work? And do you believe that it is possible for anyone in your location, in your vicinity, to do this?
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it's possible for everyone. I was actually really surprised when I read this question. I was talking to one of my friends at the Goodwill outlet today, and we were just conversating about how lucky we are because we have all different types of flea markets, our Goodwill bins, and then there's a huge thrift culture here, so I feel like that makes it great for sourcing. So if it is competitive here and it's even easier in other places, I would believe this is something anyone could do no matter what area you're at.
Do you ever believe that maybe in the future it could get too competitive? I guess, do you think there would ever become a point in time where there would be too many resellers sourcing in your same location that you wouldn't be able to find the goods that you're looking for?
Yeah, sometimes I do think about that, and that's where I sometimes think of like innovating. So currently, also right now, I didn't mention it. I'm starting to do private buyouts, like just people selling modern things to me that usually just do vintage. So to me, it's just trying to find expanding the ways I could source. So if one way closed down, I still have another way, you know?
Yeah, it's great to have a backup. And very cool that you are looking for almost essentially like a wholesaler in a sense. And hopefully, you can find somebody to source for you in your area too. And that's why I recommend chatting to everybody in the reseller community, because you never know when you'll just come across somebody that's like, man, I'm really tired of listing. Like, I don't want to house all these items, but I love sourcing. You like are smashing listing, you've got a virtual assistant. How about I source for you? And sometimes those conversations can be that simple. It sounds like you are making some really good connections in the reseller community. So I wouldn't be surprised if I talk to you maybe 6 months from now and have found a sourcer. All right, now we are going to get into just topics that, again, I kind of saw um, just comments, not necessarily questions, but just comments flooding on that interview. And that was, again, all related to focus, consistency, motivation, and discipline. Those were the main topics that I saw being discussed in the comments. So I wanted to just break down each one and kind of ask you some questions in detail if you're up for it.
I'm up for it.
Okay, let's start with focus. It was very apparent while we were talking to you about your business that you are a very focused individual. So, how do you stay focused?
Focused is just by creating goals for yourself. You create short-term goals to get you through your day, and then you could also create long-term goals that you chip at, that you work each day to chip at to eventually achieve.
I love the breakdown. Another consistent theme that I saw was about consistency. You mentioned that you're basically doing the same thing every day, which is where those comments came from like, oh, kid, all you do is work. Like, do you have any time for yourself? So it was very apparent, for better or for worse, that you are very consistent in your reselling business. So, what do you do in order to stay consistent?
Staying consistent, I feel, is just building habits. It might be hard in the beginning. For example, I was a night owl for a long time, but the opportunities are in the morning. So you gotta build the habits of waking up early, and then eventually it just turns into consistency and routine, and it's something that becomes easier to follow over time.
How did you break the habit of being a night owl?
Oh, you gotta take control of your mind. Sometimes your mind, you want to just stay up all night and be on your phone, rot in bed, and just stay up. But if you wanna succeed, I feel like you have to make those sacrifices for yourself to so you're able to wake up energized in the morning. And if I have to give up being a night owl and sleeping early, I feel like that's just the thing to do.
Do you feel like you're a morning person now, or does a part of you still feel like, if I let myself, I could go back to being a night owl?
Oh, I'm definitely a morning person. I used to question all the time, like if I'd ever be a morning person, and here I am now. I love the mornings a lot more. I look back at the night owl days now, and I'm like, I don't even know how I was a night owl before.
I love that. Okay, let's next talk about motivation. It was very clear based on how much you were inspiring other people that not only are you a motivated individual, but you're also motivating other people just coming on and talking here on YouTube with us. So, how do you stay motivated?
Slowly seeing the results come, it definitely helps with motivation and to continuously keep working. And then also the goals you set for yourself help you stay motivated as well.
Okay. When you set these goals, you talked about them being short term and long term. How short term and how long term are we talking? For instance, when you say a short term goal, is that like a weekly goal? Is it a daily goal? Is it a monthly?
Oh, sometimes a short-term goal could be as easy as this listing daily, getting your 40 listings done per day. It could be a goal to sleep at 10:30 because you'll be waking up at 6:30 and you want to get your 8 hours of sleep. So it's just short-term goals you make throughout your day.
Okay. And how about long term? How far out long term would one of your goals be?
Long-term goals, oh, these stretch out far. It could be, eventually wanting to open a warehouse, open a store, or build a brand and grow a social media page, something like that.
Okay. Thank you. And lastly, let's talk about discipline. And I have two questions for you related to discipline. But first, I am going to pop up on the screen here. I looked up the definition of discipline because at first I was like, okay, I've asked about focus, consistency, and motivation, and I feel like these kind of all tie into discipline. And I wanted to make sure basically not to double ask the same question. But when I looked up the definition of discipline, it was the practice of training people or yourself to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment to correct disobedience. And I thought that that was a really interesting definition. And I guess I'd never heard it put that way. And so, with that in mind, I created these questions for you. So, the first one is, do you have a set of rules for yourself that allow you to stay disciplined?
So for me, I feel like staying disciplined is more in the beginning when you're trying to just break a habit. Like, for example, is going to bed at 10:30. I was a night owl. Probably I'd get off work 11:30, and then I'd have time to myself. I'd probably be in bed by like 2. But it'd be like some nights it's like I don't want to sleep at 10:30, but it's like, I'd rather watch movies, but it's like if I want to wake up at 5:30 feeling energized, I know I need to, so I need to stay disciplined. And like even if my mind wants to stay awake and watch a movie, I have to like go to sleep.
Yeah. So, what are the consequences? I guess we can just use the, you know, breaking the habit of being a night owl and forcing yourself to become a morning person. What are the consequences, I guess, of not following those rules that you have set for yourself?
Oh, you won't be able to make it. You won't, the opportunity won't be there the next morning because I might, like for that example, I might oversleep. I won't feel rested. I won't feel sharp. So it's kind of doing like a favor for yourself, sleeping early. So when you wake up in the morning, you feel energized and ready to go for the day.
Yeah, I think that just kind of ties along with what we were saying about time too, like being efficient, because that's where the freedom is at. And I think the same thing applies to having a set of rules for yourself. Again, a lot of resellers get into reselling because they want freedom and they want to be able to make decisions for themselves. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to set boundaries for ourselves and be our own boss and actually treat ourselves like an employee. And I think when we don't have those rules, there are consequences to them. And when we do follow those rules, we find ourselves put in the best places of opportunity, where otherwise you'd be missing out, right? And you might not have the chance to further increase your business so quickly if you're not following these rules. And I heard you say a rule earlier, which was we asked you about washing clothing, and you said that, I'm not going to wash. I'm probably not going to wash it unless there's at least a $30 value or higher if it were clean. And so that's just another example of some boundaries that you've set with yourself and a set of rules. And I would imagine you probably have a lot of rules and boundaries for yourself all interweave within your business. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I'd say so, yes.
We kind of mentioned some changes already in your business, some things that have changed since the last time I spoke to you. You mentioned that you are no longer sourcing at just one spot and you're testing out some other things, sourcing at some new areas, which I think it's great that you're pivoting. You mentioned possibly getting on social media. So, what changes have happened that we haven't mentioned already since we last spoke to you? And then do you have any upcoming changes in your business?
So I've been sourcing a lot more, about maybe 2 to 3 times more than I was in the last interview. And then the changes that are coming, I'm still doing my daily listings, but I'm planning on adding a whatnot show maybe here, maybe 1 or 2 a week. I just created that. I just signed up about last week, and then I'll be having my first show this upcoming Monday, which will be the 24th. And then, yeah, I'm just kind of trying to prepare for the warehouse when I want to open one, probably by the end of the year. So I'm trying to build a great foundation, getting a lot of inventory, and then try to labor out more work and hire someone to take pictures too.
Awesome. Well, congrats on getting started on Whatnot. And if you don't mind, send me the link to your Whatnot profile, and I can link that down in the description too, if you want to, because I'm sure a lot of people would like to join and say hi to you and interact with you in your Whatnot chat. Wishing you a lot of success on that. Whatnot is a lot of fun, and I think it can be a really great addition if you've got the right personality and also discipline for it. So I think that'll be awesome to see. Is there anything else you'd like to share that I didn't ask you in this video, or anything that popped up while we were talking?
I think we pretty much covered everything for the meanwhile.
This is a question I'm going to start asking at the end of every interview that I have on my channel. And it's a question that somebody posed in the Resellers Edge group. And I thought it was such a great question. I've also mentioned it here on YouTube. But the question is, what is the difference between a reseller who wants to succeed and a reseller who does succeed?
So a reseller who does succeed is someone who is putting in the work daily and going out there sourcing, but also listing, doing the whole course that you need to do. I know there's some people who want to succeed where they'll source a lot and they'll just create like a huge death pile and they're not doing the full operation that you need to actually be successful.
Totally agree with you. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you letting us pick apart your brain and answer some honestly pretty detailed questions about your business that not every reseller is sharing. So thank you for being so open and answering all of the viewers' questions. I think it's going to be really helpful to a lot of people, and also providing those pictures too. I will put links to everything that we talked about today down in the description. Make sure you guys go follow him on Instagram. Go check out his upcoming Whatnot shows.
I made a new Instagram just for my thrifting and then that's Hansel Thrifts. It's just my name and then thrifts.
Okay. I will make sure to link that down below. And yeah, go check him out, go support him, and hopefully I'll see you on one of your Whatnot shows soon. As long as I am available, I will be on there to support you and say hi.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.